Likkutei, Parshas Chukas, the first mimer of Chukas. We're holding Perek Gimel. The page is 113. 113. On top it says Chukas. In the Hebrew it's Nun Zayin, column 1. Today's class is dedicated by Dr. Rebbe Yitzchak Kaplan in memory of his beloved father, Reb Naftali Hertz, ben Reb Aaron HaKoyen, in honor of his 27th yahrzeit, which was Rosh Chodesh Tamuz. May his neshama have an aliyah, tehei nishmasei tzura b'tzur HaChaim, and may he remain an eternal source of light and blessing and inspiration to you, Rebbe Yitzchak, and your entire family, and all of the Jewish people, Arichas Yamim V'Shanim Tovos, and Atzlacha Rabbi in your holy work of healing people. Thank you. Okay, we're holding Perek Gimel. V'hinei b'chinas reifes hapara la'efer. I decided that today I'm not going to give a summation of the previous classes, because you know what happens with my summations. Summation is supposed to be a sentence, but then the ADHD takes it away and it ends up becoming a whole shiur. So I don't regret it, because I just try to be a channel, so whatever comes probably has to be said, at least the way I understand it. But today I want to learn inside more. So we're holding Perek Gimel. Till Perek Aleph focused on the questions of Zois Chukas HaTorah and the explanation of Ratzoi and Shuv, the two motions that constitute the very experience of life. In other words, Ratzoi and Shuv are not just two interesting ideas, but as the Pasuk puts it in Yecheskel, V'hachayis Ratzoi v'Shuv. Literally it means the angelic beings, the Chayis, like we say in the morning, Chayis HaKodesh, the holy animals, which represent the Malachim, the angels, they both go in Ratzoi, which is yearning, longing, and Shuv, returning. The Rebbe explains, HaChayis also refers to the entire Chayis. The Chiyus, the life force of life, of the universe, the life force that comes from the Creator to any creature, is always moving in two directions, Ratzoi and Shuv. And as he said, that's why the heart expands, contracts, expands and contracts. And that's not a small thing. That heartbeat, which represents these two opposite motions, on this depends the circulatory system. Nefesh habasar bedami, the soul is in the blood, which means this is the source of life. And the same is true with the oxygen. The circulatory system is the blood, then you have the respiratory system, the whole breathing system. Again, there is the inhaling, I'm taking in the energy, and there's the exhaling. So that was Perek Aleph, Ratzoi and Shuv, and he explained that the whole Torah and Mitzvahs is essentially the rhythm of Ratzoi and Shuv. But in Parah Aduma you see it emphatically, the mixture of ashes, the burning of the cow which creates ashes, and mixing it with water. So it's not just a symbol, the very mitzvah of Parah Aduma is around these two experiences, as discussed in the first classes. From this he went to Perek Bais to discuss the concept of the fire, the burning, Ratzoi, which is the yearning. And he explained the whole concept of how you have to look at the animal soul, the Nefesh HaBahamis. And this is one of the very fundamental Maimarim, to teach a person how to understand the animal soul, how to dissect it, how to see it. And the key is, never see it as evil at its core, even if it may be feeding the person with pretty intense and even negative or immoral and promiscuous, what we would call pretty bad emotions, cravings, desires, inclinations, triggers, etc. As he says, you always have to distinguish between the chaymer and the tzura. That was the main core. And when you burn the Parah Aduma, when you put it in fire, representing the fact that you really allow it to, you break it up, right? You challenge it. You challenge it to its core. You see that the core is not bad. On the contrary, the core is a koyach hamisave. It's a pure energy that can be directed in different ways. Not only that, It's not just neutral. In its source, it's pure holiness. You could say it's neutral. That's also pretty powerful. It's not bad. It's neutral. It's a koyach hamisava. He says in the source, it's actually chayes hakodesh. It's pnei shor mehasmail. It's from the Merkava of Yecheskel. Its energy got lost in translation. It gets redirected and reoriented. And that's what the whole Sreifas HaPara is about. To be able to bring back the Nefesh HaBahamas to its true essence, to its true identity. That was the main point. So now he continues Perek Gimel. So based on all of this, what does it mean to burn the para? To become afer, which means ashes. It's the experience of love with all your heart, which means, as the Mishnah says in Brachas, the 9th chapter, what's b'chalav avcha? Shlo Hashem with all your heart. It means b'shnei yitzarech. That's what the Mishnah says, with both yitzarim, with both inclinations. The yetzer tov, yetzer hara. Which this is a big chiddush. What does it mean to love Hashem with the yetzer hara? We say yetzer hara is looking for bad. It's an evil inclination. We call it the evil inclination. The yetzer hara. It's a yetzer, it's creative. Yetzer comes the word creative. And yetzer is like an inclination, but for negativity. So was this some magic formula? The answer is, when you understand what the yetzer hara is the forms that the Nefesh HaBahamas takes on. It's not the Chaimer of the Nefesh HaBahamas. It's never the Chaimer of the Nefesh HaBahamas. It's the forms that the Nefesh HaBahamas takes on. And that's why essentially Avodas Hashem is not about obliterating a part of yourself. It's always about awareness and education and enlightenment and empathy and containment. And ultimately repair and sublimation. There's different stages, like we spoke in the last year. There's a skafia, there's a hapcha, right? I can't start with transformation. First I have to start with containment, with appreciation, with sensitivity, with empathy, understanding what it is and understanding, I do have these tzuras. My chaimer does take on all these tzuras. And they may be very disturbing forms. And it may simply come in the form of anxiety, in the form of depression, in the form of laziness, in the form of arrogance, in the form of disconnection, whatever it may be. These are the tzuras that the Chaimer has learned to acquire in order to survive in a world in which it's trying to be safe and even comfortable according to the only skills it has. One of my children likes to make fun of me, so he says, if he sees I'm a little anxious, he says, Tati, you're doing the best you can with the tools you have. You're doing the best you can with the tools you have. Relax. Huh? Yeah, he's feeding back to me what I tell him when he's anxious, you understand? So that's the litzanas. You're doing the best you can with the tools you have, right? So, I'm paraphrasing him. The Nefesh HaBahamas is doing the best it can with the tools it has. Its toolbox is a limited toolbox. You know the difference between a Yiddish toolbox and a Goyish toolbox, right? Huh? How much space in your house, not your house, but how much space in most Jews' houses is dedicated for tools? Okay, so you're a plumber and he's a carpenter and an electrician. Huh? Calm. And there's pens over there, and there's a scissor there, and there's probably some magic markers there, and some shoe polish. But there's also tools, yeah. Our dear Gentiles will sometimes have a whole section, a whole garage for tools. Our Nefesh HaBahamas has a limited toolbox. And with that limited toolbox, it does what it can in order to survive, and it develops all these tzuras. So when we can go back to the Chaimer, he says, there is ultimately transformation. And this is what Ratzi is. Imratz libcha, as it says in Sefer Yetzirah, your heart yearns, races, Ratz, running. Yisoida eisha belev. And this is connected to the element of fire in the heart, the thirst. And then there is the opposite form, which is shoiv, which is returning. And this is what the Torah says in the Chukas about the Paraduma, that one needed to give place mayim chaim, living water, which is spring water from a living wellspring, el keli, into a vessel. So the water is in the vessel, and then they put the ashes into the vessel, mixing it in the water, and you put the water on top of the ashes. V'nosan olav mayim chayim al kali. This is the avodah of mayim. The avodah of mayim. That's what he spoke in Perek Aleph. That in life there's two opposite tnuas, two opposite experiences. Ratzoi and Shoiv. Ratzoi is, I'm longing, I'm pining. It's tzama lecha nafshi. Kama lecha b'sari. Be'eretz siyavayev b'li mayim. And therefore there's a tension, there's a thirst. That's what thirst is. I'm looking for something. It's the lack of complacency, of smugness. Everything is perfect the way it is. It's drive, it's ambition. So there's a tnua in Hebrew, it's called metach. There's a tension there. I'm looking for more. I'm looking to go back to my source. That's Ratzoi. What's Shoiv? He said Shoiv in a way comes from a deeper place. Shoiv comes, in the amazing words of the Alter Rebbe, Ratzoi comes from a Malak Kalalman, Shoiv comes from Sevev Kalalman. Shoiv is the awareness that as a Shemayim V'Saretz Ani Malei, I fill heaven and earth, who nimtza lamata kamay lamayla. The whole truth is down here like it's up there. And therefore, there's no Ratzei and Aliyah, Vu life still. It's celebrating and embracing what is. Like we spoke at length in the first class, Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Samid, the Baal Shem Tov said Shivisi is from the word Hishtavus, Shava. There's an equalness, there's an equilibrium in everything because Hashem Lenegdi Samid. Doesn't mean all life is the same. You know, a heart that's on the same level, we know what that means, right? When it's straight. That's the end. A heart alive is Ratzei and Shoiv. It's not the straight heart. Shivisi, however, means that the Hashem Lenegdi Samid allows a person to understand that the greatest moment is this moment. And the whole meaning of life is right here in this experience. And that's the Ratzei and the Shoiv. So that's represented by the fire and the water. And one is represented by Mamala Kalam, and one is Sevev Kalam, and he says one is Binna, one is Chacham. So that's what he says. So now he goes back to Shoiv. When a person realizes what the Nefesh HaBahamis is, there's a Ratzei in the Nefesh HaBahamis. There's a yearning, there's a love. It loves. You say, I don't love God. I love a lot of things. He says, no, the Pnimius is V'haftas Hashem Elokecha. If you could see the Chaimer deeper than the Tzuris, you'll see it's V'haftas Hashem Elokecha. So we have to know both things. We have to know how low our Nefesh HaBahamis can fall, but we also know that even in its lowest places, Yaakov Chevel Nachalosai, Be'etzem, it's Shayich to B'chol Avavcha B'shnei Yitzarecha. It's not evil at its core. It's not a Melchemes Hashmad. We're not here to obliterate. We're not here Lahashmid, Lareg, or La'abed. That's not the Avodas Hashem. And on the contrary, as I told you from the Kotzker Rebbe, you know, when you break the taiva, you sometimes just reinforce it, which means you have two taivas. It's not really a fight. It feels like a fight, certainly. It feels like a fight, but it's not really a fight. You're really helping the Nefesh HaBahamis as much as you're helping the Nefesh HaLekis. When I follow the external craving of the Nefesh HaBahamis, I'm not just betraying my soul, I'm betraying even my animal. The animal is also begging to be helped. It's like a little kid throwing a tantrum. The worst thing you can do for that child is you also start throwing tantrums. It's the worst thing you can do. That baby needs a parent in the home. The baby needs a mother, a father, who have confidence, who have presence, who don't take the tantrum so seriously. They don't ignore it, they don't repress it, they don't scream at the baby for having the tantrum, but they don't take it so seriously. They're not overwhelmed by it. You know that Yiddish song, that great song about Casco? Oh, it's a great one. There's this Chassidish guy in Casco, you know, Sunday afternoon. It's packed. And he has his little 4-year-old, and he puts him, of course, in the wagon, right? Shopping, and it's a long shopping list. His wife gave him a very long shopping list that week. And you know, men following shopping lists of their wives is one of the more complicated things in life, because you know, if you get the wrong one, right? The wrong ingredients, so everything has to be mamish mechuven. Everybody's smiling, I see, so everybody understands this. Okay, wonderful. I'll have a conversation with your wives to relax on you. And so he's walking, and this kid is screaming. Mamish, he's throwing tantrums. And not only that, he's pulling things off the shelves, you know, the fruits and the quinoa and the cereal boxes and the lox and everything else. And he's like, David, Zayruyik, be relaxed. You're soon going to be home. The kid is hollering and screaming. Anyway, finally, after half an hour, the father keeps on saying, Davidul, please be relaxed. We're going to be home soon. So one of the directors there works there, comes over to him and says, I have to say, years I never saw such a father, how you tend to the emotions of your child. And you're so relaxed to telling him you're going to be home soon, etc. So he says, no, David is my name. He was telling himself. So the bottom line is that the Nefesh HaBahamis itself wants that presence. So that's the idea of V'chalavavcha, that's the Ratzai, that's Yisayid Ha'esh. Now you have the Shoiv. The Shoiv is the Mayim Chayim Al Kali. As he says. The Kamoy Mayim Chayim Emanayvim Metachas La'aretz. When you have Mayim Chayim, what are Mayim Chayim? It's not just rainwater that's gathered in a cistern, like a mikveh, a kosher mikveh. That's not Mayim Chayim. For Para Aduma, you need Mayim Chayim. Mayim Chayim means living water. What makes it alive? That it's literally connected. It's part of a flowing Mayim. It's a flowing spring, which is always subterranean. It's under earth. That's what a Mayim is, Mayim Chayim. If you go back to their source, it's concealed. It's underground. And yet, this Mayim Chayim, you dig out the well, and it comes from place of concealment to the Gilui. This is not a body of water that's on the surface. It's a body of water that's under earth. That's what Mayim Chayim is. And that's why it's flowing there. The living well springs are all under earth, and it comes from that place to a place of Gilui, to a place of exposure. That's why we can have access to it. When it's under earth, I don't have access to it. Kach, so this is a metaphor. Hu yizbarach nikra mekar Mayim Chayim. Hashem is called Mekar Mayim Chayim, like we say, Ki'imcha Mekar Chayim. And in Yirmiyahu it says that I am Mekar, you left Mekar Mayim Chayim, the source of living water. Ki hu stimu dechol stimun utmiru dechol tmirin. Because he is concealed beyond all the concealments and hidden beyond all the hiddenness. In other words, even those levels that are hidden and concealed, he's still even deeper concealed. Anoichi Misha Anoichi, like it says in Zohar, the only name is I am, and who am I am who I am. It's an expression in Zohar, Anoichi Misha, I am who I am, meaning I have no way of explaining it or defining it. But from this source, like the well comes from this source under the earth, which is hidden, from this comes out Mayim Chayim, which can flow on top of the earth. That's the Mayim Chayim, and the Gemara says about Bakama that Mayim is Torah, Mayim Ela Torah, Hi HaTorah, Shebchinas Chachmei La, which is the divine wisdom, Shenemar Bava Chachma Techaya, it says in Mishlei Chachma Techaya Bala, Chachma gives life to her masters, to her own, to those who acquire it. V'lechei Nema Yamusa V'loi B'Chachma, the Pasuk says they will die not with Chachma, Ki HaChachma B'chinas Eitz Chayim, because Chachma, that's the Mayim Chayim, which comes from the source of the Mayim Chayim, which is Tmiru D'chol Tmir, and Stimu D'chol Stimun, which is Anoichi Hashem himself. So this is the Mayim Chayim Al Kali. You take from this Mayim Chayim, which is the Torah that comes from this place under the earth, which is hidden. But the Mayim Chayim have to be put into a Keli. It has to be put into a vessel. It's not just the water flows. I have to take this water and contain it. Shehe Maisa Mitzvahs, this represents the Maisa, the actions of Mitzvahs, Shem Pchinas Kelim, which are vessels. They are containers, because each Mitzvah is a defined, structured act. It says that the 248 positive commandments are called the 248 organs of the king. The Gemara says in Makkos that the 248 positive mitzvahs correspond to the Ramachi Varim Shal Adam, to the 248 organs or limbs of a human being. We have around 248 limbs, organs. The Mishnah in Ahalois goes through the whole cheshbon of how it works. But in Zohar, Pnimiyas HaTorah, there's an addition. It's Ramachi Varim de Malka, Kavayachal, the king's organs. What does that mean? He doesn't have a guf. Shakol mitzvah b'chinas keli miyuchad legiluyar. Just like every organ channels the life of the soul in a particular way. So he says every mitzvah, the Moed Dikataych, every mitzvah is an Aver de Malka, it's a keli. It's a container for a particular type of consciousness, a particular type of giluyar, a revelation that comes through this mitzvah. Tefillin channels the divine energy in what we call moichin, awareness, staka, kindness. The letters of Torah are also kelim. Torah is not just an abstract idea of Chachma that comes into letters and words and sentences and concepts that you can hold on to. So the Makar Mayim Chaim, which is Hashem himself, comes out through the Mayim, through the Torah, El Keli, all the way into Kelim, which represents the letters of the Isis of Torah and the Mitzvahs. And this is all part of the Shuv, the water, coming back to oneness. Following the Rotzi, the longing, represented by the ashes of the Parah. That the Parah, the Nefesh HaBahamis, when it's taken to its core, it's full of a thirst and a yearning, because the Nefesh HaBahamis is full of yearning. You know, you take even, it says in Kabbalah that our hodog is Kelev. Kelev is kulei leiv. It's all leiv, right? And it always wants. It wants attention, and it wants validation, and it wants company. And every Nefesh HaBahamis is yearning and seeking behemah. So usually animals are looking for food, or looking for company, or looking for socialization with their herd, with their family. But it's translated into an animal form, but essentially the attachment that the animal seeks, the comfort it seeks, it comes from the Chayis. It comes from the Chayis HaKodesh. Down here, it goes through a Shviras HaKelim, and it's translated into very, very base physical things. But the essence of it is very, very pure. And our Nefesh HaBahamis too, therefore, has that thirst. And all its thirst and all its yearning, even if its thirst is being translated, and the way it's coming out is, as we said, very, very superficial things, or even sometimes poisonous things. But at its core, it's really seeking Avos Hashem. That's really what's going to satisfy it, nothing else. Real attachment, real dveikus, which is also real dveikus with itself. That's the Rotzi. For this, I have to be able to take apart the part. I have to get to the Chaimer, not just to the Tzura. If I just stay in the Tzura, I'll never see this. That's why we burn the Parah Aduma. We take it to the base, to the most pristine core element of it, which is Efer. Afterwards, Tzarech li is B'chinas Shuv. So now there's this yearning and this longing. Now there's Shuv returning. Lahamshich Gilead in Tzev Baruch Hamal Maila Lamata. To be able to bring and access the light from a higher place, Lamata, down here. And that's the whole concept of Torah and Mitzvot, which is basically embracing this world as a place where the Shekhinah dwells, whether it's in Torah or in Mitzvot. And this water comes from where it goes into a kelim. Where does it come from? It comes from the source of the Mayim Chaim, which is hidden. The source of Torah, the source of the Mayim, which is Ein Sof Baruch Hu, infinite, and that's why it's hidden, because there's no definition for it. Ki ruach aisi ruach v'amshi ruach, the Zohar says, a spirit brings forth a spirit, and accesses a spirit, meaning shaideim rotz lip through the rotz v'sapchach hasheichel enoyre the nefesh habahamis, the transformation from darkness into light of the animal soul shezobchin is tshuva. This is the whole concept of returning tshuva, returning the animal soul to its own source. Aidezem mamshech mebchinas mekar mayim chayim. This allows ruach aisi ruach, the ruach of a person going upwards, gets him in touch, or her in touch, with the mucker, with the source of the Mayim Chayim, which then can flow downward, El the Keli, into this world, and into the person's present life. And that's why the halacha is that you have to put the ashes on top of the water. Because, and this is an interesting, if you look in Chumash, literally, it says, right, you take from the ashes, v'nosan alav Mayim Chayim El Keli. You place on the ashes Mayim Chayim El Keli, into a vessel. So it sounds like you first put in the ashes, and then v'nosan alav. Says lakhu l'tamei me'afar sreifas. This is the expression. But lakhu l'tamei me'afar sreifas achatas. They take the ashes, the earth, from that's left over from the burning of the chatas of the parah. V'nosan alav Mayim Chayim, and you place on it Mayim Chayim. So first you put in the ashes, and then you put Mayim Chayim on it. Chazal say that's not how you did it. Why? Because it says v'nosan alav Mayim Chayim El Keli. So it's called a hekesh. There's the juxtaposition between Mayim Chayim and Keli. It should have said they took the ashes and put it in the Keli, and then you put water on it. It's not what it says. It says v'nosan alav Mayim Chayim. You put on it Mayim Chayim El Keli, in the Keli. That means that Mayim Chayim has to be touching the Keli. Mayim Chayim has to hit the Keli. The Mayim Chayim has to be the first one to touch the Keli, and then you put in the ashes. It says you put the water on the ashes. I'm sorry, it says you have a nasan alav, you put the water on the ashes. So Chazal say, that's what Alter Rebbe says now, that what? That after you put in the water. And then you put in the ashes. Sometimes the ashes could float on top of the water. So you have to make sure to take the water and place the water over the ashes. The ashes like in a mikveh. The ashes get submerged in the water. So you say, why does it have to be so complicated? First of all, who cares? It's very clear. There's ratzoi, there's ashes, there's shoiv. The biggest mistake, one of the mistakes that people make is, after the shuv that came after the ratzoi, do I need another ratzoi? That's what he says. Ki agam acher b'chinas shuv mikol makom tzarich liyas nikir yishumah shel haratzoi ki tzarich liyas tamid ratzoi v'shoiv. Even after the shuv, even after the water, v'nosar alav mayim chayim al keli. You place on it mayim chayim al keli. You put the afer into the water. And what says you put the afer into the water? As he says, you have to see the yishumah, the residue of the ratzoi in the shoiv. In the shoiv, you see the ratzoi. Because there's always a case of ratzoi v'shoiv. So after the shoiv, you still see it came from a ratzoi, and there's going to be another ratzoi, and then there's going to be another shoiv, etc. The heart doesn't stop beating just because it did it well a minute ago. Or just because I breathed yesterday, it's beautiful. Ratzoi v'shoiv is not like medicine. Chas v'shalom, a person has an infection, they take medicine, and the infection is cured. You don't have to take medicine your whole life, hopefully. That's when a medicine, when it comes to oxygen, you don't say, I had oxygen yesterday. Oxygen is not a punishment. It's not to cure an infection. It's the rhythm of life. It's not an infection. It's the rhythm of life. That's how life works. If I want to, without that, the person has been breathing 85 years wonderfully. And then they say, I had enough. I'm going to Miami to relax. Well, stop breathing. Well, we know the end of the story. You could call the Chevra Kaddish in Miami. Lo yaleinu v'lo yaleichem. And you understand the point. But when we say shoiv is from above, it's the above, the way you find the above inside of you. Ratz lipcha shoiv le'echad.
In practical words, 2024, what means the ratz lipcha shoiv le'echad?
What is what?
How do you explain the ratz lipcha shoiv? How do you interpret the ratz lipcha shoiv le'echad? It says, a mensch darf zien allein als so rukim. Sometimes a mensch is sehr stark in the business. Sagt man im shoiv, als da waren Kinder shoiv. But the rochni is, that a mensch startet sie,
Shoiv, I don't think shoiv doesn't mean to stop have dvekus. It's a deeper dvekus. It's a dvekus that doesn't look like dvekus. Doesn't have to look like dvekus. It's nimtza lamata kamay lamayla. It's understanding that dvekus doesn't have to look heavenly. Dvekus could look very, very earthy. Me.
I have to stop the dvekus.
Yeah. Not yet. Changing a diaper, yeah. That's part of shoiv. Yeah. Doing the dishes. Yeah, whatever a person is involved in life. And it sometimes looks so mundane. And this person is on fire. This is what integration is. And it's true in all spiritual experiences. I always say one of the greatest challenges in spiritual journeys, whatever they may look like, is the integration afterwards. The integration afterwards is sometimes much, much harder. Because over here you don't have the full ecstasy and the geschmack and the high of dvekus itself. On the contrary, now you're bringing it all back to the regular self, which is what you wanted to run away from.
Changing a diaper, Hashem made the baby should have a need to change.
That's what you mean, yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I have to ask Hashem, please.
Yeah. That's what it says by Rebbe Kiva, nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom. In order that the shoiv doesn't just put the person into a place of it could be emotional paralysis, the shoiv brings to a deeper ratzoi. And then the ratzoi brings to another shoiv. So that's the rhythm of life. So it's not that after the shoiv it's over, that's what he says. Yeah. Right, it's not static. Yeah. So even after the mayim, you have mayim in the keli. Now you put the afer, and you see the afer. B'shagam ki ha'afer v'aratzui hu ha'goyrem amshachas ha'mayim chaim ha'makar mayim chaim kanal. It's not just you also need ratzui. It's the afer, it's the ratzui that causes the shoiv. It's what allows you to find the divine in the presence is the ratzui. So it's not just you need ratzui, you also need shoiv. You need shoiv, you also need ratzui. One depends on the other, just like again with the oxygen. Right? Right? The inhaling allows the exhaling allows the inhaling. The contraction of the heart and the expansion of the heart, they depend on each other. One work without the other. So he says it's the ratzu that allows the person to tune in to the makar mayim chayim, which could then come down out in the gili el keli. Because ruach, I see ruach, vamshich ruach. So it's the ratzu that brings the shayv. That's what he's saying. And there's a parenthesis here with Mara Mekaimus, and then he says, and this is also what it says afterwards, that the Kayin takes on Eitz Eres. Eitz Eres is a branch from a cedar tree. Ezov is a bush, it's called a Hyssop in English. So he takes grass from the Ezov. Ushni Sailas, Shni Sailas is like a tongue of wool that's dyed with a crimson color. Shni Sailas, Sailas literally means a worm. A worm. Shni is scarlet red. Like Imiyu Chataechem Kashanim Kashelag Yalbinu. Scarlet red is Shni, it's red. And Tailas either is a worm or some say it's wool that's dyed with a crimson red color. Yeah. So he takes this, and he throws it into the fire where the parah is being burnt. So you have not only the ashes of the parah, but you also have the erez, they have the ezov, and you have the shni selas. What's the connection? The hineksiv, the pasuk says in Yeshaya, al tidi teilas Yaakov mesei Yisrael. Yeshaya Navi says, Hashem says, don't fear worm Yaakov. Teilas is a worm. He calls Yaakov a worm. Don't fear mesei Yisrael, the numbered of Yisrael. In other words, you may fear and say, I'm just a little worm and I'm outnumbered. He says, don't fear because I'm with you. On this, the Medrash says in Yalkut Ma, just like a worm, you have these bug worms, other worms. They can strike and kill an erez, a cedar tree. A cedar tree is tall, powerful, robust. And how do they do it? Only with their mouth. They don't have. The worm doesn't have. If it's gonna be a boxing match or wrestling match between the tree and the worm, we know who's gonna win. But this worm, nonetheless, starts eating up on the cedar, and can ultimately kill the tree. This is Ma'aseh B'chol Yom.
So this year, the infestation of the caterpillars, you may not have seen it, but it was here.
The caterpillars in Monsey, and how many trees die because of it. It looks like a little worm or a few worms. Yeah, they call them bug worms. They're talasan, different species of worms, bug worms, other worms, and they come and they attack a tree, and even one of them, and then a little while later, boom, the tree is dead. Termite. Yeah, all different types of termites. Yeah. It ruins certain parts of the trees, which then can create infections in the trees, and the tree dies. And you're talking about a cedar tree. So that's what he says. Why is he comparing the Jewish people to Tailas? The Tailas could take down a cedar tree through its mouth. Sachakal, it does its eating. It's munching. And by munching, it kills the eres. Kach Yisrael ein lem el tefillah. The Jewish people, sometimes it looks like a small, little, insignificant people. Their enemies look at them and say, you're just a bunch of worms. But don't underestimate the power of their mouth, the power of their tefillah. And the Alter Rebbe says, "V'chein b'dibur haTorah." And the same is true with the words of Torah. K'mayim in Azal, Moed Katan Daf Terzayin, Gabi David, K'shah Yoshik V'Isik B'Torah, Hayim Adin Atzmei K'Telas. It's an interesting Gemara. I just want to read it to you. Moed Katan, a minute. Oh. He says like this. The Tanakh in Shmuel Bais, Perek Chav Gimel calls David HaMelech Adinoi HaEtzni. Adinoi HaEtzni. So the Gemara says, what's pshat? So he says, when he would sit and learn Torah, he would bend himself. He would, like a tailas, he would, what's the word? Crunch himself. He would sit on the ground and he would be completely dedicated and submitted that his hands and his feet, it was like everything was tied up. He looked like a little worm. That's what he was. When he went out to war, he was like a tough, strong tree. So adinoy ha'etzni. A tailas is pliable and flexible. It's adin. Adin is very, very sensitive. With your pinky you could smash it. It's small and frail and it rolls up and it's a little tiny thing, right? You just step on it and it's done. On eitz, you can't with your pinky crush an eitz. David HaMelech is adino ya'etzni. He had this paradox in him. When he was learning Torah, he was like completely botlam of It was like a tailas. And he would roll himself up completely like a little child, like he says in Tehillim that kagomel, what's his lashon over there? That he's like a little baby. Nafshi kagomel alei ima. I feel like a little suckling infant in its mother's bosom. But when he went out to Milchama, he was a warrior, right? Maksha atzme ka'etz. Adino ha'etzni. So here we see again, so the Medrash says that Tailas, the P of the Tailas represents Tefillah, and by David we see it represents how he learned Torah, like a Tailas. Completely dedicated, like there was no ego at all. He was like a little child, like a worm. That's what he says in Tehillim. Anoichi Tailas v'loi ish, cherpas adam of zuyam. I'm a worm, I'm not a person. Cherpas adam, I'm the bzuyam, I feel like nobody. For such a low self-esteem, the man was pretty powerful. He didn't have low self-esteem. He had bittul. Right? He knew if you want to go out to war and be like a tree, so then when you're learning, you completely there was no ego there. He was completely dedicated, so he became a channel. That's the pshat. So that's what he says here. We see here the emphasis is on the mouth of the worm munching, because learning Torah, even though it's understanding, it has to be bedibur. It's not enough just to think and read. There's a mitzvah of dibur v'dibartabam. All the mitzvahs one needs to fulfill in action, but also words and thought. Even the mitzvahs that now we can't do because it's only by the Beis HaMikdash, so you can't do it now in action, you still do it in dibur, in words. Gemara says in Menachos, when you learn the Torah of the carbon oil, it's like you're being makriv the oil. So how am I being makriv the oil? Through words. Right? Like it says in Medrash that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Hashem says, learn the halachas of the Beis HaBchira, and that will be like you're building the Beis HaMikdash. I'm not building a Beis HaMikdash. I'm learning Rambam Hilchas Beis HaBchira, how to build it. How they built the Heichel, and how they built the Shulchan, how they built the Mizbeach, how they built the Azara, how they built the Ulam, how they built the Lishkoyas, whatever, all the details of the Beis HaMikdash. So I am building it. I'm building it in words, just like an architect, right? He doesn't build a house with bricks, but he builds it on paper. He draws the plans. He's building it. And then the contractor has to actually implement it, execute it. So you have mitzvahs. Every mitzvah, you have the mais of it, you have the dibur of it, you have the machshav of it. Why is words of Torah so important? The main thing is thinking. So I'm just reading. Read it. So this is because the dibur, what happens through the dibur is what happens is the koyach, the energy of the dibur elyon, of the divine words, can be accessed through the mouth of the one who's saying these words. The words that I've placed in your mouth. In other words, your mouth becomes a channel for the divine words. And he brings a lot of Meir Mekaimis where this is explained. The last line, in the Parshas Bais, right? The Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth. In your mouth, it should flow through your mouth. V'zeu inyan teilas Yaakov shekoiche befiv dafka. That's the koyach of the teilas, the worm, it's with the mouth. So the tefillah and the Torah is with the mouth, b'dibur. Because that way the mouth and the words become a channel for Hashem's words. V'zeu ikar b'chinas medaber. And this is the main idea. We are called people who speak. A person is called a medaber, which means a speaker. Kamashakasov. B'mavay shiarim, it's brought in Kabbalah, ki ha'hevdel bin chai medaber, l'chai bilti medaber hu b'peh. What distinguishes the chai who is a medaber and the chai who is not a medaber? Our world, we have daimim tzemech, chai medaber. Daimim is inanimate, tzemech is vegetation, chai are living organisms, living mammals, living animals, and medaber is the speaker. So what distinguishes us from the chai? Speech, the ability to speak. The consciousness, every animal has consciousness. Animals have emotions. They have a certain level of cognition. But the level of the human cognition, the cognitive revolution of a person to the point of medaber, that's unique. So we see the word is medaber. The pen, the mouth. But in order to access this, it's only with a condition that the words of Torah are done with bittul. What's prat with bittul? That there's no I involved in the words. As the pasuk says, "V'lo yischalalu Hashem kachim." Don't make a chilul Hashem. Don't desecrate my name. What's the shaykhis here to the maimer? Because the Rebbe used to teach "V'lo yischalalu" different. Everyone teaches "Lo yischalalu choil." Don't make a chilul Hashem. The Rebbe teaches in my modern "V'lo yischalalu" from the word cholol, which means emptiness. Shaloi lasas cholol u'masach mavdol. You know what a chilul Hashem means? Chilul Hashem means don't make believe that there's a place that's empty of His presence. Lo yischalalu. Don't create a cholol. Don't make a void, a place that's devoid of His presence. Because einayid mulvade. Lo yischal. That's pshat chilul Hashem. To put it, you like 2024 language, yeah. Chilul Hashem doesn't mean, that we cover up all of our crimes so that the media doesn't find out about it. That's not what Chilul Hashem means. That may be a Kiddush Hashem, that they see that the community is dealing with stuff. Chilul Hashem is that people think that when they hide something, it's really hidden. That's what a Chilul Hashem means. That's what a Chilul Hashem is. When you think you can hide, you can't hide. Don't make a chalal. So the beginning of Chilul is inside of me. So that's what he says. When the dibur in divrei Torah is done with a bittul, what's arrogance? Arrogance means I'm creating a chalal. I'm making believe that Hashem is not here right now. So now I need a separate reality to substitute for that. But you don't need that. Lo ilas is chalal. V'zeu b'chinas tailas. That's what it means when David says he would learn ma'adin atzmei k'tailas. So physically, when you learn the Gemara, it means like he rolled himself up. He looked like a worm. David was very flexible and very pliable, and he knew how to stretch. And Lamnatseyach, we see in the Tehillim that he knew how to fight. Right? David HaMelech had a chush, right? What's it? Hamalamed. Hamalamed, that's ba'oisay l'melchama. Yeah, he teaches me how to fight in war. So when David HaMelech sits and learns, he completely crunches up and rolls himself up like a worm. Okay, so that shows just that he was physically very, very pliable. Yeah. But there's a deeper inyan. What's the deeper inyan? Hainu shi b'b'chinas bittul, b'b'chinas nivze be'einav nimas anoichi soilas v'lo yish, v'yidei ze yi atzum, v'yidei ze yi akoyach b'fiv k'shemedab b'divrei Torah, liyaz v'asim dvarei mamish b'ficha. Now when you open your mouth, you know who's speaking through you? Hashem is speaking through you. Here you right away see the paradox that the deepest bittul creates the deepest strength. Because it's not me, it's not my words. If it's my words, it's as powerful and as intelligent and as amazing as my ego manages to be at this moment. V'anoichi soilas v'lo yish. And therefore he could be a channel for something that's higher than ish. If I have to be an ish, I have to be impressive, I have to be a man, fine. So I'm impressive as my ego can be at this moment. It may be very impressive, fine, but it's a very frail, it's very limited. When he was learning Torah, there was no I. So he was like a sailas. He was completely curled up. You're a melech. You have to sit on a throne, right? You bend yourself down like a tailas. The Gemara says he would sit on the earth and like be ma'adin. He wasn't like a king. He was like a shmata, like a worm. It's pasnished. In dine malchus, it's pasnished. sit on your throne, we'll bring the Magashir, and he'll bow down to you, and you'll hear, right? And people will be fanning you on both sides. That's how you learn. That's how David HaMelech learned. When he was learning, he was like a worm. It's an interesting expression. He wasn't only one of the boys, he was less. He was mamish like a worm. You know, the worm is like the symbol of there's no chut hashedra, there's no spine. And then when he goes out to war, he's ke'etz, and that becomes his name. Adino ya etzni, he's both together. Adin is like sensitive and sweet and soft, and etzni is like he's a strong one. It's the same name. So it's a split personality. No, it's the same person. When you read Tanakh about David and when you read Tehillim about David, it looks like two opposite people. In Tehillim, he's always crying. He doesn't stop. He's sighing and crying. The whole world wants to eat me up. You're my only salvation. Right? These words, I'm a worm. He's constantly. Everybody tried to swallow me and kill me, and there is Shayim. Everyone wants to destroy me. And he's sighing, and you see how difficult his life is. I mean, almost every kapitel in Tehillim. He always ends off, but I have you, and you're my refuge, you know, vani eftach bach, and nobody will get me, and the truth will come out. Gam ki elech begeit salmavas, but he's walking in terrible places. Esek shamayim shamata vatzia sha'oil, he goes to the abyss, he goes to the other side of the sea, ends up in the worst places. Mikfirim yechidasi, the lions want to eat me up. Every kapitel in Tehillim. Like a broken man. In Tanakh, there's no zecher for that. In Tanakh, he's a warrior to the point that Shaul is jealous. Because it says in Tanakh that when David came back, they said, Hika Shaul ba'alofav v'David b'rivavaisav. Shaul managed to strike in the thousands, but David is the real man. And Shaul got jealous. However you explain Shaul's jealousy. But in Tanakh, David is a mighty warrior. He's fearless. He's the one who unites, the first one who unites the Jewish people. Remember, he's the first king that's successful. He unites the Jewish people. He begins the preparations to build the Beis HaMikdash, right? He creates the capital in Yerushalayim. This is all David HaMelech. He's the first Melech Yisrael that was successful, and he did an amazing job. And it came with tremendous strength, and he had a lot of enemies, right? So who is it? So that's what Alter Rebbe is saying here. It's Adino Ya'etzni. It's Zel Bezach. It's the same David. Because when he learned that he davened, he was like a little worm. Nafshi kegamel aleim. He was like a little child in on the bosom of its mother. Completely attached and dveikas without an ego. The baby nurse doesn't have an ego. All it wants is attachment. I don't need anything else. So therefore, now when he goes to war, it was a completely different person. It wasn't a confidence that was coming from his own image and his own reputation. There was a confidence that was channeling through him. That's what real malchus is. That's what real leadership is. It's a different type of malchus. Malchus leisla megar maklum, it says. It has nothing of its own. So that's what he says. That's the peh. When I don't allow any empty space, devoid of Hashem, that includes the first thing. Where do we create the greatest empty space for Hashem? That's the ego, the self-consciousness. Either I'm a shmata or I'm an oig melech habashim, but it's the same thing. It's v'lo yischalalu. I believe that I am not infinite. It says in Tanya in Perek Chav Bais. The Gemara says that gasas haruach is shkula keneged avodah zarah. That arrogance is like avodah zarah. So the Rebbe says, why? Arrogance is arrogance. It's not a good thing. It's avodah zarah. You have arrogant people. I'm an arrogant guy, so I'm an avodah zarah. I'm not avodah zarah. I daven shachris, a mincha, ma'ariv. I happen to be a bal guy. Okay. Huh? It's a good question, no? Somebody is stupid. He's avodah zarah. He's stupid. It's a shaita, fine. Why is it avodah zarah? Gasas haruach is like the whole sugya mesechus soita about it. Daf daled, daf heid, gasas haruach. It's like the worst. So the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, he says ki ikir v'shoyrish avodah zarah. What's the source of avodah zarah? What's the root of avodah zarah? The root of avodah zarah is that you think that there's something separated from the kedusha of Hashem. The essence of gasas haruach is, it sounds like you're arrogant. Really, it's that, the worst the lowest level of self-confidence a person can have is arrogance. The worst self-confidence a person can have is expressed in arrogance. Because basically what it means is, that I feel that my I is separated from the divine I. And therefore I need to build it into something. What's arrogance? Arrogance is, I need to take something. It's like you're building what they call a house of cards, At the beach, when kids build castles from sand and then one wave comes. So arrogance takes a self that doesn't exist, an ego, and turns it into something massive, and then invests resources into it. It's like Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. You're putting in billions of dollars into something that never existed, never will exist. All you're doing is wasting your mental space. So Gasas HaRuach is the Iker and Shayrish of Avodah Zarah is that a person thinks that he's separate. The moment I think I'm separate, now I have to invest my existence with something. So that's what Gasas HaRuach is. So that's the beginning of Loisa Chalalu, making an empty space. V'anoichi Soilaz V'lo Yish is that bittul, that there's no I, and therefore that's how he learned. Once you learn like that, now the words are not his own words, they're channels. And then there's tremendous power in this mouth to expel the nurture of externals. Every day there was an oilas tamid. So the Arizal says oisius toila. Oilas tamid is the same letters like toila, which is the worm, toilas. What's the connection? Carbon oila, oilas is toila, is a worm. V'ubchinis toilas Yaakov. This is the toilas that Yeshaya Navi is talking about. V'alzen nemar tzavas b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim es karbani lachmi lisharech nechoichi tishmeru lahakriv oisius laharkiv. Laharkiv, which is to offer the same letters like laharkiv, which is recovering. It's to when something becomes disintegrated. Yeah. In Yiddish, it's called verschimmelt, verfoilt. Yeah, rekev, verschimmelt, verjavet. K'moya toiler shemechalo markev es eitz hachazak. Back to the toilas that the Mishnah Chazal say ruins. That's what it does. It's markev. How do you see the tree is dead? You see, it's rakav, it's fashimmelt. It rots. That's the word. It causes it to rot. So the oilas tamid, which is the toilet, creates the lahakriv, which is the laharkiv, like the toilas. Kamaya toilet shemechalo markiv. V'lechein Rosh Tevis. Ana b'chayach gdulas yemin chatatit tzrura gematria toila. Ana b'chayach gdulas yemin chatatit tzrura. It's the gematria. The Rosh Tevis is the gematria of toila. You probably believe him, but it's good to see. Toila is 470, plus 30 is 506, right? Tuf is 400, Lamed is 30, Ayin is 70, so that's 500, and Vav is 6. If you take Ana, B'chayach, Gdulas, Yemin, Chatatit, Tzrura, the Rosh Tevis of these words. So you have Ana is Aleph is 1, B'chayach is Bais is 2, Gimel is Gedulas, it's 3. Pretty simple at the moment, right? So you have 6. And then you have Yemincha is 16, and then you have Tatir is tough. So what is it? 416, and then you have another 90. So it's 506, which is Toila. What's the connection? Stam up gematria. You found the gematria. Gematria is work because there's an inner connection, and therefore it's expressed in the gematria. Shaydei HaTorah, which is Yemincha nedari bakayach. Shemamshech b'chinas ches chachmei la b'chesed raya yemina v'aydei nimshech lahafrid yinikas achitzaynem. Ana b'chayach, please, with the kayach of Yemincha, of your right arm. Tate tzirura, you should untie those who are captive. Tzirura means those who are in captivity, those who are bound up. Tzarur, they're bound up, like hostages. So tatir, like matir asurim, you should untie them with the kayach of gdulas Yemincha. It's good you just learned what ana b'chayach means. It's also a good thing, since we say it so many times a day. So why is that the gematria of Toila? Because through Yemincha, we say in the Shira, Yemincha Hashem nadari bakayach. Through your right arm, which is strength, which represents the Torah, which brings Chachmei law, which is the right into Chesed Raya Yemina. This creates the Toila, which separates the nurture from the external forces. V'ukamkin mashakosov achakach kabel rinas amcha sagveinu tareinu neira, which is Rosh Tevis kra satan. Kabel rinas amcha is kra, right? Kufresh ayin. Sagveinu tareinu neira is satan. Tear the satan. in Hebrew means kabo rinas amcha, accept the praise, the joy of your nation. Sagvenu, exalt us, taharenu, purify us, noire, exalted one. Kikein b'chinas limud ha'Torah b'fiv, kshu b'chinas bitla, derech v'noichi teilas, laharkiv v'lekraya nikas ha'chatzonim shemesitu d'smala. The power of learning with your mouth, when it's done in a state of bittel. Like David HaMelech says, I am a worm, so it creates laharkiv, to rat, and to tear up krasatan, the nurture of the external forces, which is the left side. Al derech para de kabilas mismala, like the cow which receives from the left, like he explained earlier in the Maimer. Small doiche bezawinyan krasatan yichlu saitnei nafshi, as it says in Tehillim Ayin Aleph, the saitnei nafshi, those who attack. The satan means those who attack. They provoke. They want to be barriers to my soul. Should cease to be. V'ayin mashakasu b'priyetz Chaim Likkutei Torah Parshas Truma. The Arizal says, "Ki gam kein Rosh Tevis shavaseinu kabel u'shmatza kaseinu yedei talumas u'gematria toilas." Shavaseinu kabel u'shmatza kaseinu yedei talumas, which is also part of Ana B'chayach. You have Ana B'chayach dolos yimin chatatit tzrura. Kabel rinas amcha zagveinu tareinu naira. And then later you say, Shavaseinu kabel, accept our cry. Ushmatza kasenu, listen to our tears. Yedei Talum is the one who knows the secrets. Here again is the gematria of Tailas. Not Toila, but Tailaas. You add another 400. V'inyin zeh yesh loymar, the pshat is the koi al dibur oisis hatfila. Here he's talking about the words of tefillah. Shavasenu kabel ushmatza kasenu. Kamasham razal al pasuk Tailas Yaakov the koi al atfila. So we have two things. We have Ana B'chag Dulis Yemincha Tatit Surah, which Yemincha represents Torah, Miminoi, Eish Das Lamai. Kabo Rinas Amach Zagvenu Tarenu Neira, Shavasenu Kabel Shmatza Kasenu, which represents Tefillah, as he says. V'asi Shapir, Inyan Ashlachas Telas, Shani L'tech Sreifas Apara, Shubchinas Haratzi, Shubchinas Tefillah. So now you take this Telas, and you put it into the ashes of the Paraduma, which is Ratzi, which is davening. The concept of Ratzi is expressed in davening. That's the time of yearning. So you take the tailas and you throw it into the ratza, you throw it into the fire. So the davening is done with the bittul of tailas. Because the tailas, you need both in tefillah and in Torah. David HaMelech was like a tailas when he was learning. The Medrash says the Jewish people are tailas through their tefillah. Because both tefillah and Torah, our words become channels rather than traps for divine infinity. When there is veloy sechalelu, when there's no empty space, when there's complete bittul, when we let go of any last vestige of ego. The ratzah needs to be without ego, and the shuk needs to be without ego. That's why you throw in the tailas. You throw in that little worm. The little worm looks like powerless, but don't mess, because the cedar tree will be taken down by that tailas when his mouth becomes the mouth of a tailas. The carbon oila is connected tefillas. We makriv the carbon oila for tefillah. So that's why oilas is toila, just like you throw the toilas into the ratzoi. So oilas is toila. Lahakriv, which is laharkiv. Lahakriv, which is laharkiv, which is tarat, which is what the toilas does. And we know in different stages of davening, you say Ana B'chayach. Usually when you go from one world to another world, there's a break of Ana B'chayach. That's why we do Ana B'chayach in the morning. Do Ana B'chayach after Sfir, Ana B'chayach Friday night. The different times of Ana B'chayach. In Kabbalah is a time of aliyah from one world to another world, so that's why you have these remazim here in Ana B'chayach. So now we come back into the fire. They threw in these things. So what do we have the Nekuda till here, he said? You have the Ratzah is the fire. You have the water is the Shoiv. One is represented by Tefillah, one is represented by Torah. One is the yearning upward, and one is the connecting back. And that's the concept of davening and learning, really. Davening is a time of yearning. It's a time of love. It's a time of working with my Nefesh HaBahamis, getting rid of the knots of the Nefesh HaBahamis and opening it up to its chaimer, letting go, and finding the connection with the source. And then learning afterwards is bringing back God into the world. Because what is learning? Learning is always, you have to understand, it's structured, it's oisius, and then there's mitzvahs. So that's all bringing elikus into the world, because when you're learning about the world. Tefillah is, in a way, leaving our plane of reality. It's going to a higher place. It's a journey upward. Torah is a journey downward. One is Eish, one is Maya. The condition with both is that you need a Tailas, Anoichi Tailas V'Layish, which represents the bittul. Letting go. That's what makes Torah unbelievably powerful and Tefillah unbelievably powerful. Yeah, it's Ratzai V'Shayv. Tefillah brings to a deeper Torah and Torah brings to a deeper Tefillah. And they both connect with Tailas because the real concept of Tefillah is that a person just lets go. I let go of my expectations. Right? The real concept of Tefillah is a person davens. But what type of davening? There's a davening, I'm like making deals. The real concept of davening is Hashem svasai tiftachu fi agatei lasecha. I become a channel. I become a channel is I really let go. I let go of how I have to envision, how I envision how the world has to be, how I have to be. It keeps me stuck. Right? Tefillah is the complete surrender of letting go, which is the essence of liberation, of emancipation. You don't become less powerful then you become a channel. The same is true learning. The greatest enemy to learning is I control the information. I process the information in a way that it sits well with everything I know. That's not learning. It's putting things into my filing cabinets. Real Torah is lahakriv, it's laharkiv. It's allowing, v'noichi selas v'loyish. Why did David HaMelech crunch himself up like a worm? Why did he bend himself into this worm shape? It was a symbolic. I'm completely pliable. I'm not stuck in anything. You know, people who are very into stretching and their bodies, they perfect their bodies in that sense, right? They could roll up in all these shapes. It's like pretty amazing how you take this body and it becomes so flexible. So that's what he's really saying. That's what David HaMelech did, but it's more emotionally, the physical and emotional. Emotionally, what that means is I don't have to look a certain way. I don't have to come out winning the argument. I don't even have to come out understanding the argument. I don't have to come out on top. I don't have to come out on bottom. I don't have to come out. I don't exist. God exists. I'm a channel. It's the only real way to learn. Any other way of learning is ultimately going to pervert the wisdom. It's going to be a krumah cup. Because arrogance perverts wisdom. There's an expression in Musar, kol gay shaita. I think Shevet Musar. Kol gay shaita. Every arrogant person by definition is a shaita. Gay as an arrogant. Gimel Yud Aleph. Goy. Kol gay shaita. Why? Maybe he's smart. By definition, he's a shaita. Because when you're arrogant when it comes to wisdom, you're a shaita. So that's the tailas, both in Tefillah and in Torah. So he finishes the paragraph. That's why he threw all this into the fire. Midas are called tzemeach, which means they grow. You have midas that are immature, you have midas that are mature, small state, large state, they're in a place of tzemeach. Our midas are always in a fluctuating state of growth. A child has midas as strong as an adult, but they're expressed according to the child's perception of reality. We grow up, hopefully our midas grow with us, not always. If the child didn't get the nurture the child needs, the midas remain childlike. But midas are in a state of tzemeach. That's what they are. Like a small tree, a sapling has the whole tree, but it's still small, and then it grows. Even the seed has the tree, right? It's a baby sapling inside the seed, but then it grows. Ezav is like considered the smallest shrub or bush. It's a very short bush. It's called a Hyssop. Eitz Erez is considered the tallest, or one of the taller trees, the cedar tree. So this represents midas in the entire spectrum of midas. The whole entire spectrum of tzemeach. The tallest and the shortest. In Kabbalah we know that the primary breaking of the vessels in the world of Tohu was in the 7 midas of Tohu. Shemizen ishtalshlu zayin midas de klipa. V'yinikasa mezayin midas alyonis. They evolved into 7 midas of klipa. 7 midas which are based on klipa, based on shells and husks. But they all receive nurture from the 7 midas of Hashem. Because everything receives nurture from there. So the Shviras HaKelim of Tayu, all midas royas, all 7 midas of klipa are called midas of klipa. What does it mean, midas of klipa? It's a midah, it's an emotion, it's a trigger. But there's a cover-up what it really is. We don't know what it really is. In other words, the chaimer and the tzura are not the same. That's what a midah of klipa is. I want something, or I'm running away from something, or I'm triggered by something. But there's a klipa there. There's a shell and there's a husk hiding what the real emotion is about. Because it comes from Shviras HaKelim. There was a breaking of the vessels. As we explained in other classes. In this Maimah, the Shvira means things are scattered. So you don't see it anymore as part of the whole. So I'm fragmented. Whenever there's a fragmented personality, right? When you have a person breaks up into different pieces, the pieces don't join with each other. Whenever they don't join with each other, that's what Shviras HaKelim means. There's just disjointed pieces inside of me. It's not all part of holiness. Kedusha is always achdus, it's whole. So all the midas is part of an integrated person. And that's what healing looks like. What's the difference of healing, not healing? It's not like when I'm healed, I don't have any issues. That doesn't exist. Healing means it's part of an integrated personality. It's seen in the context of the whole. It's not plucked and isolated on its own. The beauty of a garden is, right, that every plant, every flower is part of a garden. You pluck it, now it's on its own and it dies. A Shviras HaKelim Dika personality means I'm a fragmented person. So things have to live on their own, so they have to find meaning within themselves. And whenever I find meaning within myself, it's usually a very, very diminished form of meaning, because it's not part of the holistic oneness. So that's a fragmented person, fragmented midas. Those are midas of klipa. And because they're fragmented midas, there's midas that basically are eclipsed by a klipa, by a big husk, by a big shell. I don't know what they really are. Midas of kedusha is without a klipa. So all the midas receive their nurture from Hashem's midas, l'cha Hashem agdula v'agvura, the 7 midas. But when it goes through a Shviras HaKelim, it comes out as midas of klipa. So on a practical level, what this means is, 2024 language, I'll try at least. A person has a very profound trigger, an emotional trigger. How do you know if it's from Kedusha? How do you know if it's from Klippa? When the midah takes over everything, there's nothing else. In other words, it's fragmented from everything else, and this becomes the sole focus of my existence. Right? You're my biggest problem in the world. If I could only get rid of you, I'll be a happy person. You right away know it's covering up reality. If I could see it in the context of the whole, when you see it in the context of the whole person, when you see it in the context of many different emotions, now it actually means you give it space. There's a little bit of a distance between you and the emotion. You could see it within a whole, then the midah won't be so terrifying. It's going to be almost like a child throwing a tantrum. Shviras HaKelim creates a disintegration. There's a fragmented personality. So that's what he's saying here. That the 7 midas of Klippa get their nurture from Zayin Midas Elyonis, but it went through a Shviras HaKelim. So you have the Eitz Erez and the Ezoiv is the whole spectrum of midas. From the strongest, from the tallest to the shortest. Midas, from the katnas to the gadlus. You have, what else do you have? You have Shni Soilas, who markiva eitz de klippe, mafri di nikas achatzenu b'chinas amidas de kedusha, sheheinen b'chinas sameach sheb'kedusha. Now you bring in the worm. And the worm rots this tree of klippe, separates the yinika, that the chitzainim, the klippe shouldn't receive nurture from the midas of kedusha, which is sameach of kedusha. And now, the parah can be a source of cleansing. So all the midas get thrown into this ratzah, but you have the tailas that stops the yinika, that the tree of klippa shouldn't receive the nurture from the tree of kedusha, because the eitz erez and the ezav, which are all the midas of the nefesh habahamas. When you go back to the chaimer, they're pure, but the problem is that the chitzainim, the klippa is nurturing from kedusha and making believe it exists. So that's why you bring in the worm, the shni tailas, into the erez and the ezav. But now you can start healing your nefesh habahamas. You always have to bring in the worm. You have to cut over the yinika. You know, every infection, every disease, it's getting nurture from somewhere. Every toxic philosophy, someone is nurturing it. Right? The revolution on campuses against Israel didn't happen from nowhere. It happened after decades of billions of dollars being invested from Qatar and other countries into the whole university system of the United States of America, choosing the right deans, the right professors, the right chairs. You know, you give a university billions of dollars to create a department to understand Middle Eastern politics, you know, and 30 years later you have a generation that was indoctrinated. Everything has a source. Everything has a yenika. A baby doesn't live on its own. It's nursing from its mother. So every midah has a yenika. Every midah, it has some justification. There's no sheker that lives without emes. It's feeding off. It's feeding off something like a virus. It's taking your healthy cells and using it. So you have to cut off that yenika. That's the tailas. It's going to fight. It's going to fight very hard because the midah knows that you're choking it. You know, when you choke a fire, you choke it, right? You don't give it oxygen, and the fire starves to death. You choke it. That's what happens. The klippa needs to, when you sever it, right? When you bring in the tailas, it's not getting its yinik anymore. The tree dies. It can't live anymore. That's what the tailas does. And for this, you need the bittul of tailas. Every sheker, like it says by the Meraglim, Rashi says that the Meraglim first started with truth. Because whenever you put in a little truth, it gives power to the sheker. Yeah. There's always, it says in Zohar, Kuf Reish puts in a shin. Hake is shinov. It says by the Rasha, take away the shin, so you're left with Ra. Once you have Ra on its own, it doesn't exist. Rasha, Hake is shinov. Take out the shin. You take out the shin is three legs of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Take it out, so you're left with Ra. Once you're left with Ra, it's very obvious what's happening. That's why soon America is going to start having its tikkun. Once the Ra reaches a place where there's no shin anymore, so now you have to just see what it is. You see what it is, oh, this is what it is. You understand? It's true in every person's life. Sometimes the greatest moment of tikkun is when you just expose the power of the evil on its own without any camouflaging. Yeah. You take out the shin and you have the Ra, you see everything it is. Yeah, you have to put it in its place. Yeah. When there's timtum alav, you mean, yeah. So now in a person's life, what does this mean in a person's life? Every midah ra that I have, every midah of ra is a klippa. What does it mean it's a klippa? It's covering up the truth. It's covering up its own truth. It's covering up the truth of the nefesh habahamis. As we said, it's a coping mechanism of the animal soul trying to survive. And it's always getting a yinik, it's getting its nurture. And that's what Shviras HaKelim does. That's what fragmentation does. And the process of unblending and disentangling and separating from it is stop feeding the lie, stop feeding the cover-up, the blockages, stop feeding it. It's feeding off something. When we can expose the truth, it doesn't have to feed off it, and then I don't need this clip. It's just a cover-up. You go back to the real midah, to the truth. So that's when the para aduma becomes, this very nefesh habahamis becomes a source of purity. That's what he finishes, the last words of the Bible. V'zeu gam ki pirush teilas Yaakov Mesei Yisrael. And this is what the Navi says, the worm of Yaakov, Mesei Yisrael, which is the numbers of Jews, are teilas Yaakov. He says, don't be afraid. That's the pasuk he brought before from Yeshaya Navi. Al tiri teilas Yaakov Mesei Yisrael. Pirush haydei shemeisim adam mesatzim baske b'teiro b'tfilah keteilas liyas nivzebein of nimas. Dainu shemeisim mesatzim keshirayim. When a person during davening and learning, when you use your mouth, I'm like a teilas. Not just that I'm using my mouth, but that the person is completely, their ego is completely not present. Shemeisim mesatzim keshirayim. The whole ego and self-consciousness is like shirayim. It's like leftover. Like I don't need it. It's like shirayim. You don't need shirayim. Like shirayim is leftovers, right? Shirayim is leftovers. Shirayim. So what does it mean? A person makes himself like shirayim. His ego is like shirayim. I don't need it. Like you have a beautiful, beautiful meal here. You don't have to go to the garbage, what was thrown out in the garbage, and eat. There's a smorgasbord here. When you have dvekus with your true essence, you don't need your ego. Your ego is like shirayim. You don't need it. It's not going to do anything for me. Meisim es atzmei k'shirayim. It's a very powerful expression. The atzmei, the sense of ego, is like shirayim. Ich darf es nicht. It's leftover. You want to give it to the dogs to eat? Fine, give it to them. It serves no purpose. You have the meal itself. How pathetic it is. You're at a wedding. There's a beautiful smorgasbord you can eat. Right? And then you go to the garbage and you collect, what leftovers from people. Why do you need that for? The answer is I have no access to the smorgasbord. So when you have access to your true light, to your true power, to your true divinity, Meisim es atzmei k'shirayim. The whole atzma is like shirayim. It's superfluous. It's leftover. I don't even need it. You have an inner wholeness. You have inner peace. You're your greatest. Your soul is your best friend. I don't need the validation from the outside, which only feeds my klippa, which is my cover-up. I don't need that. That's what teilas means. So when a person davens like that and learns like that, the Targum says he'll become powerful, like masculine, scharim. That's how he touches Monsey. So kol ir misim guvraya, from the word gibor. He becomes a zachar, laman tizkiru, to make the mitzvahs, to be mashpia, to bring out the light in the mitzvahs, to bring the Oid Ein Sof into the mitzvahs. Like he said earlier in the Maimah, sheyasa isam adam, you make the mitzvah, you're a mashpia into the mitzvah. That's the b'china of zachar. That's Monsey Yisrael. Through the bittul, he can access the divine in the mitzvah. He brings it into the mitzvah. I want to learn mamish another 5 minutes. There's a long parenthesis, but just from the inside, it's a few lines here where he finishes the nekuda. So he says, "V'zel vaydaber ois dalet, Perek Dalet, page 130. V'zel vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron leimer zeis chukas haTorah the neklolos in yemaisa paradum ubeis in yanam alol lebchinas haratzi ubchinas hashoif." The whole union of paradum is basically these two concepts of ratzi and shoif. On these two motions, this is the foundation. On this is built the foundation. Kol ikra Torah v'mitzvah. The main idea of Torah and mitzvah. So that's why this is called. This is Chukas HaTorah. K'inyan pirush Chukas Shemayim v'aretz. Dainu an Hagas Shemayim v'aretz. It says Chukas Shemayim v'aretz loisamti. It means the way Shemayim and Aretz behave. Chukas HaTorah is the way, the system of Torah is based on paraduma. V'ugamkin lashon chakika, also engraving. Dainu lahamshich mekayra Torah. Shebchinas oisis achkika lahamshich b'shamayir v'amshach lebchinas chachmilah. Shetorah shebeksav v'menel Torah shebal peh. And this is also chakika, to access the source of Torah, which are letters that are engraved. They're not separate from the divine, to bring this light into Chachmei Law, which is Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebalpeh. Zois Chukas HaTorah, through the Ratzei and the Shoiv, one accesses the source of Torah, which is Oisis Achkika, as he explained in this Maimon and B'chukaisa. So there's a parenthesis here, but on page 114, 1, 2, 3, 5 lines from the top. V'zel vayidaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron. Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron. Sheheim b'chinas v'nachnu ma chachmei la. They both represent. They said v'nachnu ma. What are we? We are ma bittul, because they were chachma. Zois chukas haTorah. Lahamshich b'chachmei la b'chinas esis achkika shalamayla me'achachma. So he tells them. He tells Moshe and Aaron, which is chachma. This is the way to bring into chachma that which is higher than chachma, the letters that are engraved, not the letters that are written. V'zeu asher tziva Hashem leimer. And that's why he says, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron leimer zeis chukas haTorah asher tziva Hashem." So he asked in the beginning of the Maimon, he should have said zeis chukas haTorah asher tzivisi, that I said. Ki hinei shem havaya harishin zeu b'chinas mamala kalaman b'yud nivrei lam haba. V'shem havaya bezo b'chinas sevev kalaman. Whenever you have in the same pasuk or two psukim, havaya repeated, it represents two aspects. The first havaya is mamala kalaman, the yud which olam haba creates. The second havaya is sevev kalaman. So he's saying, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron." Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron. He says, "Zois chukas haTorah asher tziva Hashem." He should have said, "Zois chukas haTorah asher tzivisi." You're in the middle of talking. So why are you talking about Hashem as someone else? So he says, because that's talking about a deeper inyan in Hashem. Zois chukas ha-Torah asher tziva Hashem. Pirish tziva meloshen tzafsa v'chibur. The word tziva doesn't only mean commandment, it means connection. Shenischaber v'nimshach b'chinas seviv kalalman b'chinas mamala kalalman. Hashem, mamale, speaks to Moshe and Aaron, which are chachma. Zois chukas ha-Torah. This is the system of Torah, and this is the way to bring into Torah chukah, the oisis achkika. Asher tziva Hashem, in order to connect with Hashem, Soivav Kalam and in Memala Kalam. In other words, to connect with the pure Makar Mayim Chaim, with the infinite, Soivav into the Memala. V'zel Leimer, Asher tziva Hashem Leimer. V'ydaber Hashem al-Moshe v'lan alim, what's Pshat? Ha-mamoros, hein b'chinis oisis ham-shachim b'chachma b'reishis nami maimeru v'targim yoinis and b'reishis b'chachmasa. Leimer represents the words Ma'amoros. Those are the letters that come from Chachman. Even Bereshis, it says, is one of the 10 Ma'amoros. Bereshis is B'chuchmasa, and that's also a Maimer. Bereshis Nami Maimeru, because it says Basara Ma'amoros Nivra, but there's only 9 Vayomers. So the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Bereshis is also a Maimer. What's Bereshis? So the Targum Yonis and says B'chuchmasa. So from Chachma comes the Maimonim, come the words. In words, you should have Anoichi. The words of creation, which are words, which are containers, they should have access to Anoichi, to the I, which is beyond words, or in the lashon of the Maimed, the Soivav should be expressed in the Mamale. Stimu the Chol Stimen, V'zeu anoichi mitzavcha, v'b'chinas tzavsa v'искashrus mamash. The I should be connected to you. Mitzavcha is not only I command you, I connect to you. Tzavsa means connection. V'zeu hu mashakasav, asher tziva havaya leimer. Zeu is chukas ha-Torah asher tziva havaya, that this havaya should go into leimer. In other words, the world that we know is a world of words, and that's why it's a world of finiteness. The world comes from a place of infinity. Ratzay and Shaiv is the fusion between the infinite and the finite. That's why the Ratzay brings the Shaiv. Like he said before, Ratzay triggers the Shaiv, that you get to the source. So that's the whole Chukas HaTorah. To be able to access in Torah, Eisis Achika, to be able to bring into Lamer the Havaya of Seivev. V'hayu Advarim should be connected with Anoichi Mitzavcha. How do you do this? So he tells them, let them bring to you a para. Shebchinis ha'efer zel b'chinis rotzayim rotz libcha b'cha'aretz gdud liyas v'afta b'chalav avcha b'shnei yitzarecha v'achakach shuv la'echad hu b'chinis mayim chayim. You have the Ratzoi, the love, and then come back, which is the water. From Vahafta, what's the next mitzvah? Speak the words of Torah. Vahafta is Ratzoi, and the next mitzvah is Vahayu Advarim Eila, which is Shoiv. Shazal Yisoid Kol HaTorah Li is B'chinas Ratzoi v'Shoiv. Ubechol mitzvah gamkin yesh b'chinas u derech prat. Ach klol is b'chinas u inyan zed the para. You have it in every mitzvah. But in Para Aduma, you see it in the most general way. The general Nikud is expressed here. That's why Para Aduma is the one that accesses the Chukah of Torah, the Oisis HaChakika of Torah, into Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebal Peh. That the Oisis of Torah become channels for the infinity of Torah. Shlomo Melech said on the mitzvah of Para Aduma, I said I was wise, but she is distant from me. Shlomo said, I understood all the mitzvahs besides Para Aduma. I said I was wise. Amarti achakma. So the Rebbe touches lefishi meiredes l'mayla mayla mehachachma. Because Para Aduma is beyond chachma. Amarti achakma. Shlomo Melech said, I mastered chachma. But v'hire chaykim imeni. Para is beyond chachma. Zois chukas HaTorah. It's the chik, it's beyond chachma. The Ratzi that reaches to the Makar Mayim Chaim. It's a second Avaya. It's a source of Chachma, a Saiv of Kalalman. That's why Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'alaron Leimer Zois Chukas HaTorah Shetziva Hashem Leimer. So Shlomo Melech says it's beyond Chachma. Chachma is silent over there. Umisham nimshach b'chinas chachma, kinyan alef chachma, alef chabina, v'zau noitzer chesed la'alafim. V'gam inyan efer ha'para hainu shmebchinas par hei, nasa efer shubchinas par alef, k'mei shakasav ha'pirush b'Likkutei Torah. Here we see an interesting thing. Para and efer are almost the same letters. Para is pei reish hey, efer is pei reish aleph. Why? Now we understand. You take the par, you take the cow, the ox, or the nefesh habahamis, and it was a hay, para, par hay, and you turn it into efer, is par aleph. What's the pshat? The pshat is this mimer has a beer. The Alter Rebbe would say biurim, explaining the first mimer. So he says hay represents the hay mitzvah sapeh. All letters begin with the 5 outlets in the mouth from which all the 22 letters come from. Like aleph, ches, hey, ayin come from the throat. Ah, ches, hey, ayin. Bais, vav, mem, pei, the lips. Then you have the tongue, you have the gums, you have hey mitzvah sapeh. The way divinity comes out in hey mitzvah sapeh, it gets scattered into letters, and everything assumes its own identity. From there, ultimately, you have the shviras hakelim and the nefesh habahamis, the way it comes down here. When you take the par and you go back to the chaimer, so you take par hey, and you bring it back to par aleph. You bring the par back to oneness, back to its source in aleph, and over there you see it's not evil, it's not bad. On the contrary, it also wants the same thing. It wants dveikus. At the end he says these ashes should remain for the Jewish people as a mishmeres. Mishmeres means to guard. So Chazal say, Shehu levado, efer shemekatchen amazin memenu, oidzes hayamatzni in memenu b'chayel mishmeres, k'mevur b'pirashashi b'mishnah seif b'gimel depado b'rambam. They used to take part of the ashes and Pashut use it. They would sanctify it with holy water, with the spring water, and then they would sprinkle it. But besides that, there was a halacha that from all the ashes, whenever they burnt a part of them, they took the ashes and they hid it in the chayil. Chayil is a section on the Bais. When you were entering the Beis HaMikdash, it was called the chayil. The chayil. It was a little encircled section, and it was l'mishmeres over there. Rashi brings the Mishnah, the Rambam, and Hilchas Paraduma. Va'inyanhu, v'shabam is b'chol mitzvah yesh b'chinas ratzi v'shayv. Every mitzvah is based on ratzi v'shayv. There's no mitzvah that is not a mixture. It's part of, in every mitzvah you have the chemistry of ratzi and shayv. Every mitzvah. There's the element of longing, of yearning, of searching to go beyond, and then coming back into the structure. There's burning a fire. A fire defies kalim. Water is el keli. You can't keep a fire in a keli. You tell the fire here, stay here, don't leave. There's no such a thing. The fire breaks, it's going to break the keli. That's what a fire does. Mayim is el keli. So these represent 2 things. Ratzah is you defy kalim. Shaiv, you go back into kalim. You stay in the kalim. Every mitzvah is the mixture of both of these tnuas. Every mitzvah. The whole Torah is this. The whole Torah, this is Alter Rebbe's definition of Yiddishkeit. To summarize it, the whole Yiddishkeit is the yearning, the aspiration to always touch the intangible, to go beyond the kalim, right? To go to the string theory, beyond any definition, beyond any description, beyond any keli. If you put it into a keli, it's already not that. It's the search to break the keli, shviras hakelim in a positive way. In a positive way, shviras hakelim. And essentially, that's what we mean. Don't make an image of God. Lo yisasel l'chapesel. Because an image of God means forcing God into a keli. You don't do that. Because it's always, we're created in the image of God. We don't create God in our image. Ratzoi is that protest against fixed images. Even your own animal soul, don't put it into an image. There's a search. There's a mystical yearning. There's a search. Yeah, and therefore there's very little judgmentalism, and there's no room for ego. What's ego? Ego is always forcing yourself and others into a box. There's no curiosity. Easing God out. So that's Ratzoi. Right? Now, some people are very good with Ratzoi. The Chiddush of Yiddishkeit is that it's Shaiv. Shaiv is, now come into a Keli. Come into a Keli. Integration. Back into your life, Go home. Like I once spoke to Rambam, right? At the end of Yom Kippur, he says, what does the Kohen Gadol do after Yom Kippur? takes off his clothes. The Rambam says in Hilchos Avodas V'yoytze lebeis, he goes home. So the Rebbe once asked, yeah, obviously, where should he go? Bowling? So halacha v'yoytze lebeis. And what if he wants to go to the Shviger's house? I mean, what if he wants to go visit his sister? What if he wants to sit in the Beis Medrash? In the Beis Medrash, they had a Lishkas HaGazes with the Sanhedrin. What if the Kohen Gadol after Yom Kippur, yeah, he had a good, beautiful day, and he wants to sit a whole night and learn? They say the Baditchever was once, the Monsey was once in our city. So he came home, it's Yom Kippur, he came to the house. So they offered him food. He said, "Ich darf nicht kenessen. Ich darf a Masechah Sukkah." So he took a Masechah Sukkah, and a whole night he learned Masechah Sukkah. So what if the Kohen Gadol wants to learn Masechah Sukkah a whole night? I know in the Beis Hamikdash they didn't yet have Masechah Sukkah, but he wanted to sit and learn all night. So halach, it says in Chumash you have to go home after Yom Kippur. I understand he was tired, he was exhausted at night, he fasted all day, he worked hard. He probably went home, but it's a halacha. So the Rebbe once said that it's a halacha, and in many ways it's the hardest halacha of Yom Kippur. The hardest halacha of Yom Kippur is v'yoytze lebeis. After everything he had to go. What do you think happened when he came home? His wife said, take out the garbage. Chaim Yankel, garbage. I was home a whole day with the kids. They drive me crazy. I need a nap. You take care of the kids. He looks at his wife. He says, I don't understand you. I was in Kodesh HaKadoshim today. I brought kapara for the whole Klal Yisrael. I'm pasnished. You understand? That's the hardest part of Yom Kippur. V'yoytze lebeis. Go back home. But that's what Shuv is. Shuv is nimtza lamata kamay lamayla. God is not only in Kodesh HaKadoshim. You have to go into Kodesh HaKadoshim, Avada. But now it's Mitzvah, but now you have to have Shuv. So all Torah and mitzvahs is Ratzei v'Shuv. And I'll tell you, it's this paradox of Yiddishkeit that gives it its power. And people are not always comfortable with it. Some people love the Ratzei, some people love the Shuv. Let's face it. Some people love the Ratzei of Yiddishkeit. They're always in another trip, yeah? My life. The Iker is to run, not to be home. That's the Iker. We'll figure it out. We'll see the next ad. Where's the next tzaddik? Ratzei. And then there's people, they love the technical part. A guy once told me, I became a Baal Tshuva because I'm OCD, and there's nothing as good as OCD like halacha. He loves the Mishnah Brura. And the more chumrous, the better it is. At least he was aware that his whole halacha was an opium for his issues. Okay, so that's in an exaggerated way. But some people, they become comfortable with Judaism, the structure. They love schedule, structure. But this Maimon Alter Rebbe is saying, the whole Nekuda is Ratzei Shaiv. Because then the Ratzei is a different Ratzei and the Shaiv is a different Shuv. It's a Ratzei without an ego and it's a Shuv without an ego. In the Ratzei you're searching for truth, and in the Shuv you're searching for truth. So every mitzvah has that. But the Parah Adum expresses it. So that's what he finishes here. What gives the koyach in every mitzvah to have Ratzei and Shuv? The Parah Aduma. That's why it says, that's why there was a mitzvah to hold on, to preserve the ashes. Why? Because it's not just physically, it's spiritually. These ashes represent the koyach in every mitzvah to have the inyan of Ratzei. V'zeh mevor gam kim Parshas Rishona de Krishma v'hafta b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshecha zel b'chinas haratzei v'achach v'yad v'adam eila zel b'chinas shuv v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam v'aynu tzartzachlius hadibur daike b'teira kanal u'kshartam loisal yadecha u'chsaftam am mezuzas beisecha ki amayim chayim tzarachlius el keli davke shel maisa mitzvahs shem b'chinas kelim. The whole first parsha of Krishma, which we say every day, captures this. What are you saying? First thing is v'hafta shma yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad, oneness. Because there's one is v'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol avavcha, with your nefesh abahamis too, with your Yetzer Hara too. That's Ratzei. So now you want to stay there. What do you need more than love? Everything is love. V'hafta b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol meidecha. I'm in love. Attachment, dveikus. The deepest form of bliss. When a person can really experience this type of love, there's no bliss that's greater than that. Right away he starts shoy. V'hoyu advarim me'ela. Go home, your child is waiting for you. As he said before, it comes into dibur. It comes into words. The love comes into words. What are the words? That's the shayv. That's the words of Torah. V'dibartam is the dibur, which are again our words and letters. And then from Dibur, you have Ukshartam, which is Tefillin, Uchsaftam, which is writing the mezuzahs. So the Mayim Chaim, which is coming from the source, which is Hashem himself, comes through the water into a keli, because all Maisa mitzvahs are kelim. That's what they're containers. So the first parsha of Krishma represents this motion of Ratzoi and Shoiv. Just like oxygen, you don't end breathing, chas v'shalom. When a person stops breathing, we know what that means. It's the end of life as we know it, right? Unembodied life, there's constant... nobody is standing up. Your wife is texting you to go home. Come home. Leave the Kodesh HaKadoshim and come home. Ratzoi shoiv, Ratzoi shoiv. V'nosan mayim chayim al keli.
Move this quickly. 2 ICs in 1 hour. We'll
It's good. I'm happy we finished.
finish the whole better, so slow down. I don't think we're finished. I think we're just
That's good.
back to the level.
I'll tell you something. Today is Yud Beis Tamuz. We don't say Tachron today. So Yud Beis Tamuz is the Chag HaGeula from the Rebbe Rayatz. He was imprisoned by the Soviets in 1927. They arrested him, Tesvav Sivin. They took him to Shpalerka, which was the building is still there, a notorious Soviet torture chamber and prison in Leningrad, Petersburg. Many people were killed there, and they took him there, and they sentenced him to death, the communists, the Yevsektia. This is the Jewish section of the Communist Party. And then they commuted it to 10 years in Siberia, and then 3 years Siberia, and they sent him to exile Gimel Tamuz. But 10 days later he was liberated. Yud Beis Tamuz, Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamuz. So it became a Chag HaGeula. So this was not just a miracle for him, but most Jews lived in Russia at the time. This represented a victory of Yiddishkeit, literally against one of the most evil empires in the history of humanity. If not, between Hitler and Stalin, they could compete with each other, but they're good competition with each other. So they tell a story that he actually writes it in his diary, the Rebbe Rayatz, that when he was taken into prison, so he said that it was the middle of the night. He finished Yichidus and he sat down to eat something, and they came in the middle of the night into the house and they took him. In Leningrad, he lived in Leningrad, Petersburg. So he said when he came into prison, he knew about the place, and everybody knew about the place. So he made he came to an inner conclusion that he's completely not going to be nispal from them. He's not going to define himself by them. And that's how it was over there. The fact that he was saved was mamash in Russia to get out of their hands was Stalin killed almost 50 million people. What are you talking about? It's the worst. He killed more people than Hitler, Stalin. I'll call upon him. So at one point they were asking him all these questions, and he said, "You already know the answers. I don't have to." So the chayker, and it was all Jews. It was Jews who learned in yeshiva. It was Jews who learned in yeshiva. A lot of, not all, but a lot of them. The Jews were crazy communists. When Jews become cuckoo, they're more cuckoo than everybody, right? So at one point, when he was going to prison, there were 2 Jews who came to arrest him. They were named Lulav and Nachmanson. Okay, now understand the pain. Nachmanson's Zayda was a chassid of the Rebbe Maharash. So the Rebbe Rayatz took his talis and tefillin to prison. So Nachmanson takes it from him, and he says, my Zayda used to carry the packages. For your Zayda, I'll carry your package. So the Rebbe took it away from him. He said, no. Dein Zayda is gegangen nach mein Zayden, wo hat gewollt gehen. Du willst, ich soll gehen, wo du willst. Your grandfather went after my grandfather wanted to go. You want I should follow you, you don't have the schus to take my package. He took it away. He took it away from him. He told them both, he said, you think you sold your Jewish soul to be noisechein by Stalin. Your end will be worse than everybody. Stalin is going to destroy. The whole Yevsektia was gunned down. Everybody was gunned down, including that. He said, you don't understand who you're dealing with. You sold your soul to the devil. You think you saved yourself from the Jewish people. Anyway, I'll call upon him. So the investigator took out a gun and he pointed it at him. And he said, this toy makes everybody talk. This is the great equalizer. You know, the most sophisticated rabbi and the most peasant-like thug, everybody talks with this gun. You'll also start talking. You'll surrender. So the Rebbe looked at him and he said, this toy, this gun scares people who have one world and many gods. But I have one God and many worlds. So I'm not scared. That's what he told them. Since I have one God and many worlds, I'm not scared of your. What do you want to ask? So today is the Chag Agula. Tofresh Pei Zayin. How many years is that? Tzadik Zayin, Shin Zayin. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. 97 years. Yeah.
I was asking on a practical level, where is that void of the person? Is it during the for integration? Is that supposed to happen? Is the concentration supposed to come on during the Ratzai or during the Shoy?
The integration. It's a very powerful question. So the truth is, you're asking, does the Shoiv happen during the Ratzoi or afterwards? So in time it's in actuality it's after, but the consciousness is already there during the Ratzoi. You see an interesting thing.
You already say that it should be before.
That's true, before the Ratzoi. You're right. It says in Meseches Chagiga, Daf Tesvav, Daf Yudala, that 4 people went into the Pardes, right? The orchard. Rebbe Akiva, Elisha ben Avuya, ben Azai ben Zoyma. Everybody besides Rabbi Akiva came out damaged. Ben Azai passed away. He didn't survive. Ben Zoyma, it says, he lost his mind. And Hitzitz v'nivga, so he became affected. Elisha ben Avuya became a heretic. Kitzitz ben Atiyas. Rabbi Akiva, so if you look in the Ein Yaakov, the way the nusach of the Gemara is, Nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom. Rabbi Akiva went in peace and he came out in peace. So I remember I heard once from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he said, I don't understand. It should have said Rabbi Akiva yatza b'shalom. Everybody went in peace. Everybody, they all went in peace. They're amazing people. Everybody went in b'shalom. The problem was how they came out, not how they went in. It says the way it's in Ein Yaakov is, back in Argamot it says only yatza b'shalom, but in Ein Yaakov, which is actually more precise ksav yad of the Gemara, is nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom. So the Rebbe said Rabbi Akiva went in differently than the others. The way they went on the journey was different. They went on the journey to experience the journey. Rabbi Akiva went on the journey to come out. It's a very different inyan. It's like the chiluk of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu were very holy people. They were holier than Moshe and Aaron. But they didn't go in order to come out. They went in to go in. They wanted to go in there. Chaim says they wanted to kiss God. They kissed God. They did. They got exactly. None of you weren't upset, by the way. They went in and they did exactly what they wanted. They wanted to leave the container. They left the containers. They were very happy. They're happy at the Yom Hazeh. None of you weren't. Everybody else was upset. They weren't upset. They knew exactly what they're getting into. The Chaim says they wanted to kiss God, so they kissed God. The problem is when you kiss infinity, it's very hard to come back. Rabbi Akiva didn't go in order to go in. He went in order to fulfill the kavanah of Hashem, which is Dida B'Tachtoina. So his going in was different. So mainly he came out. It happens to be that when you go in with that state of consciousness, you can also go to deeper places. The reason is because the shoiv is deeper than the ratzon. Because the shoiv is rooted in atzmos itself. Nimtza lamata kamay lamayla. So you can actually go to a deeper place. You have to go for a deeper place. You know, it looks like you're going to miss out on the bliss. Because you know, you got to come back. It's like you make a deadline for you know, we're going to come back at 5 o'clock. No, we're not coming back. We're going. You know, but it's the other way around. So that's the answer. So already in the Ratzoi, and even before the Ratzoi, there's already a consciousness of Shaiv.
So when you come down, you have what the...
Miyalo miyakum become conscious. Yakum become conscious. To stay.
So Rabbi Akiva actually went to Shalom because the upper world, the lower world were the same.
Yeah. Shalom. Nichnas b'shalom, he made peace between the two worlds.
The worlds were the same,
Yeah.
so he remained the same.
Yeah.
So the other went excited,
Yeah.
feeling that something
Yeah.
is there, but
Yeah.
it's not here.
Yeah.
So they got excited, so...
They got excited about there, and it's not here, so they stayed there. A piece of them stayed there. Ben Azai Mamash stayed there. Ben Zayma also stayed there because he could never come fully back. He saw too much. And Elisha ben Avuya split. His soul stayed there, and his body came down. Severed, and he couldn't connect anymore. Part of him stayed there, his higher soul. His lower soul came back and said there's no connection, and that was it. It's interesting how he became a heretic. What did he see? You see that because he saw a lot, he didn't see everything, but he saw a lot, he became an apikoros.
He saw Malak Matah, he saw this God, right?
Right, but so in other words,
He went in with the wrong intentions. No, he basically had, it's like Mamish Odazor.
he couldn't come back to this world and find God in this world. He saw too much, he saw too much. It says Kitzitz Benetias. He plucked out the earth, he plucked out the plants. Why did he pluck out the plants? So the Rebbe says in a Maimer, because the side of everything is chibur. Right? That's Shabbos, you're not allowed to harvest. You're not allowed to mekoshish eitzim. You're not allowed to pluck from the earth, uproot. Because the side of Kedusha is rootedness. Everything is rooted, it's connected.
That's why it's Shuv. Shuv is back to the
Shuv back to the earth. The sitaenu bigvolenu, plant us in our boundaries. Planting, it's anchored. It's rooted. Elisha ben Avuya kitzitz benetias. He cut off the plant. That's the expression. It doesn't say he became an apikodos. That's how the Mefarshim tarj. The expression of the Gemara is he cut off the plants. He cut kitzitz. He plucked the plants. That's what it says, which is a metaphor. It's a metaphor that he couldn't see the connection anymore.
So direct that it's mind-boggling. Because you know the modern physics already know that there is no such thing as a void. Everything is entangled, connected, and glued with energy.
Yeah, no void. Yeah.
Energy.
Yeah.
Space and time.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, if you stretch that per se to the point where it's years, so that's why Kosker said when you break the tie, it has two. Mamish, you take two quarks, put them aside, you split them, and two more comes
Right.
out. Mamish physically.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is that this severe
Severing
was mamish. So to the point that it's you broke per se space and everything. The emotional energy was broken totally. It was mamish broken.
Yeah.
So
He became broken. That's what there was a brokenness. Yeah. That's v'lo sechalalu. He created a chalal. He created a chalal. The idea is that there's no such a thing as emptiness.
exactly.
So the truth is that, as you're saying, in modern physics, they say there's no void. Yeah. When you think there's a void, there's just everything is connected. Right. And so that's what v'lo sechalalu means. Don't make believe that there's a void. There's no void anywhere.
Not only that, the modern physics already in formulas, they're coming to the point that, which I go crazy about, because they find that there is nothing void. Everything is connected, including space and time. So they found this in the formula, the three-side connections from three sides, the space. But the formula points out that it's not 3, it's 10. And I can't figure out what it is, where the other 7 coming from. So it's so
Wow.
it's so crazy that it's like
Yeah.
what he's touching here is not.
Geschmack gewort an David HaMelech, v'noichi ma'adin atzmei k'teilas, u'maksha atzmei k'etz. Same person. Because he was a worm, he could be a tree.
By the way, I wanted to
Well, you said the women shared this week. And this week, Balak.
About Pa'ir.
Yeah, the concept of when you let, if it's a ganze Gunish, that's also not good.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. I had this crazy thought when we were talking. So we know that the energy and the matter is connected, like E-MC squared.
That's what Professor Einstein taught us.
Right, and he McCallum this.
Chaimer and Surah.
Exactly.
That's what you want to say. Matter and energy.
Matter is Homer, right? And we don't understand even what Homer is, because Homer it's actually borrowed energy. Down the particles there's like one particle that if you ride with this, you have a matter. But the emphasis they don't understand what matter is till now. Maybe there is no matter altogether. It's all energy. But
There's a
anyway,
bunch of dark matter, right?
dark matter is also it's a construct. It's a logical construct. It's not the Metzius of the it's not the Metzius. So the energy is like a tzura, right? In fact, all the midas, how they manifest, right? We see the arrogance. We see the
An energy.
It's actually pure energy, right? It manifests itself as a pure energy. This person is angry or whatever it is. You can see, I cannot deal with this energy, right? So it looks like a tzura is a complete. It's an energy thing.
I thought it's the other way around. I thought the energy was
But it's
Shabbos in the other place. Yeah, we're going to learn Shabbos.
equal MC.
I encryption. Yeah, so Einstein taught that matter and energy are interchangeable, right? The EMC equation.
Which most likely is correct on
Right. So on a spiritual level, that's so true that the Chaimer is really another form of Tzura.
Yes.
The Chaimer, what we call matter, the Rambam says that Chaimer is matter and Tzura is the soul of the matter. That's what he says. Tzura is the soul of the matter. Right? We were talking more Tzura as in form, the form it shapes. But there's different levels of Chaimer and Tzura. The way the Rambam puts it in Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah is that the Tzura is the neshama of everything. Like the inner awareness or consciousness, or it's really the design, the inner design or purpose of it, the meaning of it, the character of it. Not just like a body and a soul.
Could be the frequency of it.
The frequency, yeah.
Which is also, there is a Planck formula which relate frequency to energy as well. So.
Well, Planck said that, what did he say? We used to think that consciousness is a derivative of matter. Today we know matter is a derivative of consciousness. So essentially what that means is that the Chaimer is a product of the Tzura. The Chaimer and the Tzura, they're interchangeable. It's another form of Tzura.
And the Tzura is, as he expressed in this matter, is a dover. It's a speech.
Yeah.
Because today we already know even who's AI.
Yeah,
The fact
so-
that they found out that the AI is actually can work only on dover,
Yeah.
on words.
Yeah.
They don't need to introduce a concept of, let's say,
Right.
like colors. Colors could be expressed in words as well.
Right.
So everything is words. Everything.
Yeah.
So the words are, what is it? The words are actually, they carry energy, right?
The words are the carriers of the energy, Isis. They already create some form of structure, though.
There is a tzura. That's the beginning of the tzura, right?
That's a tzura, yeah. Barasiv yitzartiv afasiv. Here, when he speaks about Chaimer and Tzura, at least in the beginning of the Maimer, the main focus is
the other way around.
the forms that the Chaimer takes on in order to express itself. So it's expressed through these forms, and you could easily confuse the expression with the energy itself.
The energy itself, yes.
So here the focus is Tzura as a limited form. In other words, this is how my energy is shaped. It's taking on this shape, if you want it in the language of physics, in quantum mechanics, we know that you can't, the basketball is dribbling here, but there's a lot of things happening in another space, like
Entanglement. They call it entanglement.
entanglement. Yeah. So there's no. What you're seeing is not the full story of it. It's just one expression.
Yeah.
It's one expression of
The other side
of the molecules. It could be somewhere else, and
Yeah, it affects the space and fabric and everything, of course.
right.
Energy displacement, right?
Yeah. Simultaneously, different things could be happening.
It could be the other side of the world. It's called entanglement. They've proved it. There's something that it's completely correlated.
There is a force which glues things together, which is fascinating.
So in this case, the tsura is expressing one element of the energy, but it's not the full story. In a person's life, what that means is, my life may take on shapes and forms. My energy, my drives, my fears, my triggers, my inner belief systems and schemas take on shapes and forms. And when I start, disentangling, you're talking entanglement. When I disentangling, I could start making a distinction between the shape it took on and the pure energy of it. And it's not the same thing.
The same thing with the strings here. So if you think about just the string of the guitar, right? You want to extract the note from it. You actually have a passion to hear some interesting stuff, right? So you can hear it, and then it returns back, unless it's broken. Like you can break it, actually, right?
Kanagan and Managan.
So there's a rotsu, and show goes back to its original state. But when it goes back to original state, you by extracting that note, you can actually understood what it could connect to.
Which leads you to the next note.
Right, because it's
That's
like,
beautiful what you're saying.
right? Because it's
So you're saying when you're playing the guitar,
Yeah.
you create the ratzoi,
yeah.
and then the string goes back. That's the shayv.
But your integrating of that note is actually realizing what you just did.
Right.
So you actually connect to that.
So the
to
shayv
that
is
energy,
fueled by the
that
ratzoi.
frequency of that note.
So you create the frequency, and then it comes back,
Yes.
and then it brings the next frequency, the next note, and it becomes a song. Right? It's a continuum of ratzoi v'shayv.
Right.
So you're saying even physically, that's what's happening.
Piano, everything.
No, the piano also, because
The same thing.
you press on the key, so that's the ratzoi, but then it comes back. It can't stay down. If it stays down, its energy ends.
If it doesn't affect you, okay, you can play mechanically. If it doesn't affect you, you just your keli is not a keli. You're not sensitive. You didn't tune yourself to be more sensitive.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you're saying also, the shayv is like the pause between the ratzois.
There is always.
You press the key, so you create this vibration, the sound, and then there's the pause, there's the coming back, and then there's the continuation, and then you have the full ballad, the full niggin, the full symphony.
Which you started the first shir when you sang the Samul Hanafshi.
Ratzei and shayv. Samul Hanafshi came by Kodesh, that's the... So when we begin to disentangle the Chaim from the Tzura, you call out the Tzura for what it really is. Like you don't allow it to remain trapped in this Tzura. And then there's much more freedom to deal with it. Part of Shriya Sakelim is that it gets trapped in a certain Tzura.
So we have much
Which
more
is-
control
which
to
is-
do the work in the tzura.
Which is
and the
stories that we tell is also a tzura. Like
All the
about
stories we
ourselves.
tell are the Tzura. It becomes like a fixed form and there's no way out. This is it. It's not it.
You basically become a trap for that energy which is
Yeah.
really under it.
In psychological language, it would be, calling out defenders for what they are. Like, I may have an experience that's very deep, and then there's right away this thought that comes in and hijacks it, and it speaks in the name of truth, but it's not truth. It's fear. It's afraid of something. It's trying to protect. It got triggered. It's doing its job that it learned to do. And I can't get rid of it at the moment. But if I can call it out, I can take the tzura back to the chaimer. I could say, what are you really about? I know what you're saying, but wow, you're really uncomfortable. You're really scared. Just that, it's liberating for it. You would think It wouldn't be liberating. It's very liberating for it because you actually just, it's like you put it in context. Like you brought it back to what it really is, and you brought yourself back to what you really are. You showed the whole picture. It's not Shviras HaKelim anymore. Yeah, it's not broken anymore.
Basically, you react to a certain signal. It's enough.
Yeah.
And that creates
Right.
overwritten structure.
Yeah.
You basically override that signal
Yeah.
with your own interpretation, and that's so scary because. But if you look down,
Right.
that scariness actually comes out from that structure.
Yeah, and like, oh wow, so you're
Not from
part
the
of.
former itself.
You're actually this part of this whole context where your job is to tell me that I'm not safe now, because that's your job. You're the fire alarm, and the problem is you always see fires 24/7. So, yeah, so that's, oh wow, so okay, I hear you, and let me give you a big hug, and we're good. Like, that's the beginning of all the healing. You take the tzura back to the chaimer, like you're not stuck in the tzura anymore. You don't fight it, no.
Not only you don't fight it, you realize it's there.
You have compassion for
There
it.
is some raw energy there, which is.
There's a raw energy, and the raw energy is always innocent. It could create craziness, but it's an innocent energy. If you can go back to the first experience of it, it was very innocent, very, very pure. And if you go deeper, it's actually holy. Not just pure and innocent, it's holy.
Because it has
It's divine.
It has a source.
It comes from a very holy place. It just, the language got distorted. So its language became, be confrontational. Be a miserable person. Be miserable. That's the language it knows. It's taking divine energy, which is love. But the way it's absorbed and the way it functions is by telling you, be miserable. And by being miserable, you'll be happy. Because you'll make everybody else miserable and you'll be safe. You'll have control, and everybody will do what you need to do, what you need them to do, and then you'll be a happy person. And it's trapped, and that's what it does. So now, after 50 years, it just knows to be miserable. And that's the story.
Sorry, we have to work.
Shaiv, it's fine, you're forgiven. V'yaitze lebeisei, the Kohen Gadol got to go home.
The Maral, the Siv Asylum.
Yeah, the Maral Nesiv Asylum.
Yeah, in the beginning of Shah Yaitse, he uses these words, the Rachem ala Yaitse.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
The Maral says to have empathy. Interesting. Yeah, Hatzlacha Rabba. It's a pleasure to have you here. I see how you absorb, and it goes in and it gets expanded.
It's much more than you see.
I'm happy to hear that. But I see. I don't see all, but I see.